All right, so we are at the end of the year, and what I have here for you today is going to be a top 10 list of my favorite sort of inspired fragrance pickups that I've had this particular year. This has been a very good year for inspiration fragrances, and I'm happy to see where these continue to go going into next year. So. Just to get the list started, I actually do have 3 honorable mentions before I get to the top 10 list. So honorable mention number 1 is going to be from French Avenue, and this is Miraj Absolu. So Miraj Absolu, this is their take on Parfums de Marly's Latent Exclusive. And this one, I feel like it doesn't really get a lot of attention, but it is definitely one of the highest quality, latent exclusive inspired fragrances that I've smelled. And while this one definitely, when it first came out, it was going for a pretty ridiculous price. I think like around $70 on most websites. I think it now has come down. I believe now you can get this one on fragrancebuy.ca for closer to like 50. I'll have links in the description to where you can purchase all of these fragrances. But even at, that $50 to $60 mark or so, this is very, very, high quality. It does smell, a lot like Latent Exclusive, at least 90 to 95% close, or so to Latent Exclusive. And it does perform better than, what Anakit does from, Atulat Alam. So this one is definitely so far the best latent exclusive, inspiration that I've smelled, and I do recommend this one a lot. Now, the next one is Vintage Radio. Definitely, I would say one of Lattafa's best, releases that they've had just, in general. And this is their take on Initio's Paragon. I do prefer the way that this smells a little bit more than what I do Paragon. So, that's definitely why I still have this bottle here in my collection. This smells really amazing. It is a fragrance that has also come down in price a little bit. I believe when I picked this one up, I got it for like around $50 or so, maybe. I think I've seen this one now go for like around the $30 mark. So it is a very, very good, again, inspired fragrance of Paragon. Very sort of, calming, relaxing, therapeutic, you could say, in terms of how the scent smells, really having on lavender, Palo Santo, I believe sandalwood as well. Just a really, really amazing fragrance, especially good to wear during this time of the year. And again, this one is Vintage Radio. And then the third, honorable mention that I have here is from Paris Corner, and this is Mawj Moscow Mule. So this is their take on Blue Moon Ginger Dash from by Killian. And I mean, while this isn't like, it's not a one-to-one, it's not like an exact sort of, clone or anything like that. It does kind of give you that overall feel of Blue Moon Ginger Dash. I do think, if you are familiar with Blue Moon Ginger Dash and you're looking for something that is exactly like that, you're probably going to be disappointed in this because it is definitely missing that K-Lone note that, gives the fragrance kind of like that sort of sweet watermelon sort of feel that you get from it. But just, I think overall as just, its own sort of scent, like if you smelled this and you never smelled Blue Moon Ginger Dash, I think most people would really enjoy the way that this smells. And this also performs very good as well. For a freshie, at least on me anyway, this is like super beast mode. So I absolutely have loved this particular fragrance here. And again, this is Mawj Moscow Mule from Paris Corner. Now, just to get the list started off here, the top 10 list, I'm going to start this one off with Joe Milano fragrance, and this one is Joe Milano's Full House. So this is going to be their take on Louis Vuitton's Imagination. And I do think so far you know, outside of like the, you know, houses like Alexandria and, you know, Yaman Lale, like those types of houses, I think when it comes to these other sort of houses like Joe Milano or even some of the Middle Eastern houses, this one I do think is the best interpretation of Imagination. Now, I did just recently smell Yaman Lale's version of Imagination, and that one did seem to be just overall the most accurate take on Imagination, but it didn't have as good of strength as what Imagination did, and it definitely didn't have as good of strength as what the Full House from Joe Milano did. So this Joe Milano Full House, even though to me in the opening anyway, the citruses do come off as a little bit more sweeter and less watery than, you know, what you get from Louis Vuitton's Imagination. Just overall, this is a very sort of, you know, strong interpretation of Imagination. So this is going to be stronger in terms of projection and, you know, longevity than what, well, I won't say longevity, definitely the projection though. This is going to project harder and longer, I would say, than what the Imagination does. Overall, I mean, longevity wise, they're about the same. I easily get over 12 hours with both. But this is noticeably stronger than what Imagination is for sure in terms of how it projects. And it's just also because it's slightly more thicker than Imagination. Like I said, a little bit less watery, slightly more sweeter, especially in the opening. But I do feel like in terms of accuracy, this is very much accurate to Imagination, especially in the dry down for sure. The way that it does, you know, the tea, you know, the cinnamon, the ginger, the ambroxan. I think this does a really, really good job. So, you know, if you're looking for a really beast mode, but really accurate and high quality interpretation of Imagination, then I would absolutely recommend Full House for sure. All right. So again, that one is Joe Milano's Full House. Next one on the list, I think this is probably like Joe Milano's most popular fragrance. And this one is Joe Milano's Game of Spades Wildcard. So this is their take on Lafayette Street from bond number 9. Really, really good interpretation of that fragrance, you know, at least, you know, 90 to 95% close for the most part to Lafayette Street. The florals in Lafayette Street do seem to be a little bit more high quality than what they are in this, but this one does seem to be like, you know, the best sort of inspiration that I've smelled of Lafayette Street, you know, especially for the price. So this one, it tends to be a little bit less than, you know, some of the other Joe Milano fragrances. So like, for instance, the Full House, I believe I got this one for like around that $70 to $80 mark. And then even like the Aventus, the Absolu Aventus inspiration from Joe Milano, the High Roller, that one I believe is normally like around $80 to $90. Whereas this one, again, it's one of their most popular inspirations. This one, I believe, normally you can kind of find for like around that $50 to $60 mark. And again, it is very, very close to Lafayette Street. I believe, you know, most people probably wouldn't really be able to tell the difference between the two fragrances. And this also, it does perform considerably better than what Lafayette Street does. So overall, I just think this is definitely worth picking up over Lafayette Street because, again, it is about 95% close to it. It performs better and it costs much less. So again, this is going to be around that $50 to $60 mark. The bond number 9. I haven't really looked recently at discounted prices for the bond number 9, but I would say probably you're going to spend at least over probably $300 for the bond number 9, or at the very least maybe like the high 2s to get, you know, a full 100 ml bottle or so of the bond number 9. So this one, again, I would definitely recommend, man, if you're looking for, you know, kind of like that fresh sort of sweet apple but yet at the same time, sort of, vanilla, amber, floral notes as well in this one. It is slightly woody. If that's something that's kind of up your alley, that I feel like you could wear for the most part almost all year round, then I would absolutely recommend Game of Spades Wildcard from Joe Milano. Next one on the list, this one is from Lattafa, and this is their take on Valentino's Born in Roma Coral Fantasy, and this one is Lattafa's Jasoor. So Jasoor is another one of those fragrances that are just extremely close to the original. This is also very strong on performance. This projects really, really nicely for at least about the first 2.5 hours or so. And then longevity wise, I get all day long with this one. So easily over 12 hours. And I mean, this one, I've had a full bottle of Coral Fantasy. And I mean, really the only difference that I noticed between Coral Fantasy and this was this seemed to be maybe just a tad bit sweeter, just a tad bit more sort of denser. And the Coral Fantasy seemed to have a slightly more kind of aromatic sort of feel to how the fragrance kind of pushed out. But overall, I mean, just in terms of like the overall smell, there weren't too many differences. And the Valentino, I believe normally you can kind of get a 100 ml bottle of that one for like right around $100 or just over $100, whereas this Jasoor, this was like $30 from Banadier Fragrance. So it definitely is considerably less money, and there's really not much of a difference that you can really tell between the two fragrances. So this is a very good, sort of fall and winter time fragrance, in my opinion. Really heavy on like, red apple, tobacco. Believe there's like some lavender in this as well. Just a really, really beautiful fragrance to wear during this time of the year. And it is very mass appealing. So it does definitely have, a designer sort of feel to it. But it is a very, very good designer style fragrance. So definitely, again, man, I would say check out Jasoor. Like I said, the performance on this is very strong. Price is low, and it comes, extremely close to the original. So again, Jasoor from Lattafa. Next one on the list, this is one of my newest pickups, and this is actually from the house of Eyenash, and this is Eyenosh's L'Infinite. So this is going to be their take on Louis Vuitton's Le Monceté. Definitely so far, I would say one of the best Le Monceté interpretations that I've smelled. It is going to be better, in my opinion, than L'Infinite from Fragrance World. It's going to be better than, L'Immensity from Alexandria Fragrances as well. And then definitely, in my opinion anyway, it's better than Jean Lo Immortal. The Jean Lo Immortal to me is kind of more like a sort of twist on the scent profile, as opposed to being like an actual clone, of that fragrance. Whereas this one, this definitely is more, a lot more closer to the original scent than all of those. So you are going to get, that sort of citrusy, watery, herbal sort of feel to the fragrance, when you first spray it on, from the bergamot, the ginger, the sage and rosemary. You're going to get all of that with this one. And then also you are going to get that really sort of ambery, sort of, I would say ambery, slightly woody, and almost even kind of still slightly herbal dry down as well. So this does it the best out of all of the inspired fragrances that I've smelled. And I mean, also in terms of how this projects, it projects about the same as what Le Monceté does for me. Longevity wise, you're looking at like around 9 hours or so, 9+ hours. So really, really solid. And again, this is a 100 ml bottle. I believe it goes for like around $70 or so. So not, the cheapest inspired fragrance, but definitely not the most expensive either. And again, this is L'Infinite from Eyenash. Next on the list, this one is from Paris Corner, and this is a part of their North Stag Expressions line. This is Deux, and Deux is their take on Parfums de Marly's Latent. And this is hands down, I would say, the best Latent inspired fragrance that I've smelled. You know, I've definitely smelled several of them. You know, my first interpretation to the latent scent profile was Alexandria's Royal Equestrian. That one to me is definitely, it's a lot more denser, you know, than any other latent inspired fragrance that I've smelled. I would say denser and definitely more spicier for sure. This one seems to be like right there with how, you know, the current formulations of latent smell. So definitely they don't seem to be super dense, and that's the same way that this one comes across. It's just very kind of smooth, kind of fresh and spicy, you know, obviously that sort of oriental style fragrance that you get from this. It is going to be very prominent in the opening on, you know, kind of like that apple, the cardamom, lavender. And then in the dry down, you're going to get like a really, really smooth vanilla that comes into the fragrance as well. This is definitely a really nice fall and wintertime fragrance. And I just think overall, this one is the best, you know, in terms of quality that I've smelled to the original. This is definitely better than the Woods Collection Dust for sure when it comes to quality. I do like the way that the bottle of Woods Collection Dust looks, you know, over this one, but you know, presentation doesn't mean anything, you know, when we're talking about how something smells. So this one for sure, the juice inside of it is absolutely better than the Woods Collection Dust. And again, I would say this is probably going to be the best one that I've smelled so far. Performance wise, it for the most part performs about the same, you know, as what Latent does. So for the projection, for probably like that first hour to hour and a half or so, you are going to get about an arm's length of, you know, projection or so. And then, you know, after that, it is going to come in a little bit closer, and it's going to last overall, at least on me anyway, it's going to last about, you know, around that sort of 8 to 9.5 hours or so. So definitely not a weak fragrance at all. And, you know, again, I would absolutely recommend this one if you're not looking to go out and purchase a full bottle of the Parfums de Marly. So again, this is Deux from Paris Corner. Next one is one that, I mean, I wasn't like in love with this one when I first got it. I just kind of thought it was okay. But, you know, after like wearing this fragrance several times, I've really kind of grown to love it. And this is Atafa's Qaa'ed Intense. So Qaa'ed Intense, this is their take on Givenchy Gentleman Reserve Privé. And it's just a really, really good interpretation of that fragrance. It's, you know, a sort of powdery kind of makeup iris, you know, that you get with this one, you know, where, and not necessarily powdery, I would say more kind of like a buttery, smooth sort of iris that you get with this one. That mixed with, you know, like a really, really boozy sort of, I believe it's whiskey note, I believe is what you get with this one. That really, I think that's what makes me like this one over the sort of Dior Homme Intense scent profile, is that, you know, that sort of boozy aspect that you get from this one. That's what really makes me prefer this particular scent over something like Cayenne Classic. I think it just makes it a little bit more masculine and, you know, a little bit more wearable for me. Don't get me wrong, I still do like Cayenne Classic a lot, but I think, you know, when it comes to which one of these I actually reach for more, I definitely reach for this Qaa'ed Intense more than what I do the Cayenne Classic from Awatania. So this also gives you very good performance as well, man. So I mean, the projection on this is actually going to be very good for at least like the first 2.5 hours or so. You're going to get over arm's length of projection. And then in terms of just the overall longevity, I easily get over, 10 to 12 hours or so. So performance on this is very good. And I mean, the price on this is typically dirt cheap. So I think normally I see this fragrance going for like as low as about $20 and maybe as high as about, $27 to $30 or so. And this is a 100 ml bottle. So again, 100% recommend this one if you're into that sort of Givenchy Gentleman Reserve Privé scent profile. You're not looking to spend, the money on a full bottle of that fragrance, then Qaa'ed Intense from Lattafa is definitely a good alternative for you. All right. Next one on the list, this one is from Mawj, and this is their take on Creed's Absolu Aventus, and this is Club de Nuit Precieux. So Precieux is definitely a slight sort of twist on Absolu Aventus, but at least for me anyway, it's the version of the scent profile that I actually slightly prefer. Now, obviously, the blend quality on this is not going to be, up there with the Creed. The Creed is going to have a better blend to it, but just overall, I think the smell and the way that this fragrance is actually executed, it's actually a little bit better than what the Creed is. The reason that I like this one a little bit more is I feel like that sort of fruity pineapple that you get from Club de Nuit Precieux, it's amped up a little bit more in this than what you get from the Absolu Aventus. And that's what really, really makes me like this one a lot. So the pineapple that you get in this is like a very ripe, juicy, sweet sort of pineapple note that you get from this. And there's some other sort of fruity notes in this as well too. So just overall, this does come off as a little bit more fruitier than what Absolu Aventus does. I feel like Absolu Aventus, when compared to this, is going to be a little bit more kind of balance between like the fruity aspect of it and then more of sort of like the kind of earthier sort of aspects of that fragrance. You do definitely get a earthy sort of, dry down to this fragrance, a earthy, almost kind of like smoky aspect to it, but it doesn't seem to be as strong as what it is, in the Creed. This still, again, does maintain, a lot of that fruitiness pretty much all throughout the entire fragrance. And I think it just makes it a little bit more kind of mass appealing. Also, the smell in general from this is going to be a little bit more kind of concentrated and definitely more stronger than what you get from Absolu Aventus. So this is an extrait de parfum. The Absolu Aventus, I believe, is an eau de parfum. So, again, this one does smell like the slightly more richer fragrance. Even though it's not as well blended, it does smell a little bit more richer in terms of how the notes come across. And again, that's another thing that I really do like about Club de Nuit Precieux. Longevity wise, this does very good. I easily get over 12 hours with this one. And in terms of just like the projection on it is going to be about an arm's length, maybe slightly more than that for about the first hour and a half, 2 hours or so. So very good performer, really nice smell. The cost on it is going to be slightly higher than most other sort of Mawj fragrances or Middle Eastern, house fragrances. With this one being a 50 ml or 55 ml, I believe, this is going to be like around that kind of $70 to $80 mark, for, again, a 55 ml, which most fragrances from these Middle Eastern houses, they're normally going to be 100 ml for that price. So this is definitely a little bit more on the expensive side, but I do think that it is worth it. And again, this is Club de Nuit Precieux from Mawj. All right, next one. This to me is just like the best angel share interpretation that you can find or if you can find it anyway. And this is French Avenue's Royal Blend. So this one was available, available everywhere for probably several months, I want to say. And then it seems like now, every time that I go and look for this, nobody has it. So seems like everyone has kind of, bought this one up. And I mean, for good reason. This is basically Angel Share, just in a different bottle, with, I would say, even slightly better, projection than what you get from Angel Share. It is extremely close to Angel Share. Definitely, again, the best that I've smelled so far. Obviously, I haven't smelled every single Angel Share inspired fragrance, but in terms of like all of the ones that I've smelled, this hands down is the best. So if you like Angel Share, if you like that really sort of boozy apple, cinnamon, and cognac sort of smell that you get in the opening, mixed with that really kind of rich sort of aged oak barrel smell that you get in the dry down, that's what you're gonna get with this fragrance. And it's definitely a fragrance that, to me, it smells best just kind of smelling it in the air. So if you're smelling this scent profile for like the first time, you're smelling it like up close on your hand, or you're smelling it on like a tester strip or something like that, you may not be able to really get the hype around this fragrance. But I think, if you actually wear this fragrance, or if someone else sprays it on that's around you, and you kind of get, whiffs of their sillage, I think you'll definitely understand, why this scent profile is so popular, and why there have been so many inspired fragrances, including this one, that have tried to, recreate this scent profile. And again, to me, this one has so far been the best one that I've smelled. So longevity on this one is extremely good, easily 10 to 12 hours or so. Projection is also going to be very strong, at least for about the first 2.5 to 3 hours or so. So very good performance on this. When it comes back, I don't know what it'll be priced at. I know when this one did come out, though, this could be found on most websites for, between that $30 to $40 mark for this 100 ml bottle. So I believe for that price, this is an amazing deal. And again, this is Royal Blend from French Avenue. Next one on the list, this is also a pretty new fragrance that I've recently picked up. And it was a fragrance that I wasn't necessarily in love with when I first actually smelled it. But, giving this fragrance, several wears, I am in love with it. I can definitely say that. And this one is Lattafa's The Kingdom. So this is their take on Le Male Elixir from Jean Paul Gaultier. And this is very good, man. This is definitely, it does have that sort of Le Male scent profile to it, or that, Le Male DNA, just really kind of heavy on like lavender. Does smell kind of like a, sort of fougere style fragrance still, but it does also have, those sort of more heavier, darker, sweeter, nuances that a lot of sort of elixir style fragrances have. So this one is definitely going to be also heavy on that vanilla note for sure. That definitely shines, in the dry down of this fragrance. But I mean, overall, this one is just a very, very mass appealing, really strong, really high performing fragrance for sure. At least for me anyway, I feel like the Le Male Elixir, it does project, at least off of my skin anyway, it projects a little bit better than what the Kingdom does. But this is still going to be a very strong fragrance for sure. It's just slightly less, at least for me, than what the Le Male Elixir is. In terms of the longevity, though, this is very good. So, definitely you're looking at, between 8 and 10 hours or so of total longevity with this fragrance. And I mean, even though the bottle is not necessarily the best looking bottle, the juice in here is definitely, you know, pretty top notch. So I absolutely recommend this one again. If you're looking for a really cheap but really you know, high quality smelling interpretation of Limahl Elixir, then I would absolutely recommend the Kingdom from Lattafa. And then the last one on the list, man, this was one that I had been looking for months before I actually got my hands on it. And this one was definitely as good as what I thought it would be. This is from French Avenue, and this is Liquid Brun. So Liquid Brun, this is going to be French Avenue's take on Parfums de Marly's Altair. Extremely close to it. You know, I think, at least for me anyway, like after smelling this side by side to Altair, I definitely have no plans of, you know, going out and purchasing a full bottle of Altair, because this is just way too close to it to justify spending, you know, the extra money that you would spend on the Parfums de Marly. And the performance on it is also very good as well. So this is basically, it's a vanilla centric style fragrance. You know, you get like this really kind of like, I guess you could say like whipped sort of vanilla. So it's not like super like powdery or feminine smelling. This is definitely kind of like a spiced sort of whipped vanilla, you know, with like a really sort of fresh opening to it as well. You definitely get like a fresh sort of, you know, like bergamot opening when you first spray it on, and then it kind of turns, you know, into those spices, into the vanilla. Orange blossom is also a very prominent note in this as well. It's just a very well done fragrance, you know, or the scent profile in general is just really well done in my opinion, you know, especially for a vanilla fragrance. And I think, again, for the price that you pay for Liquid Brun, which I believe right now is probably between like $40 and $50, depending on where you purchase it from, that is going to be extremely hard to beat, you know, when compared to, you know, what you would pay for the original Parfums de Marly Altair. I believe, like, unless you're getting a Parfums de Marly fragrance from like a website like Aura Fragrance, or I don't know if like eDiscount Perfumes has them or not. Those are typically like the best places to buy like a lot of these niche fragrances, because they normally have those fragrances at like the very lowest that you could probably find them, outside of like purchasing them from like a Facebook group. Outside of that, I feel like here lately, within like the last year or so, most, you know, discounters that I've seen that carry Parfums de Marly fragrances are still selling them for like close to 300 or even over 300 for the 120 ml bottles. So, you know, again, I mean, do you want to spend $300+ on Altair, or do you want to spend $50 to $60 on Liquid Brun, and it's, or $40 to $50, I'm sorry, on Liquid Brun, and it's going to be at least like 95% close or more to the original fragrance? At least for me, man, I'm really happy with this one. Longevity on it, I definitely get, you know, over 10 hours with this one, and the projection is at least, you know, an arm's length or so for about the first hour and a half, 2 hours. So performs good, is considerably less in price than the original, and is at least about 95% close. This one is definitely one of the best releases from French Avenue. And again, this is French Avenue's Liquid Brun. So that's the list, man. That is my top 10 list of some of my best pickups that I've made here in 2024. Hopefully this list will be, you know, even stronger or just as strong next year for 2025. So definitely stay tuned. Also, let me know what you all thought about the list. Let me know if you all have any or all of these fragrances. And if so, what do you all think about the fragrances? Have they also been some of your best pickups of this year? Definitely let me know in the comments. Also, I'll have links again in the description to where you can purchase all of these fragrances. I would appreciate, definitely checking out those links. They do a lot of times generate commissions for me. But those commissions are a big part of how I can, kind of keep this channel going, with purchasing, more fragrances to review. So definitely would appreciate you all helping me out there. And also, if you're brand new to the channel, do me a favor, go ahead and subscribe. And again, that's Jamar from Vegas Sense. I'll see y'all in the next video.